I'm trying something a little different right now. I don't know if I'm going to cut out the 10 minutes of me just sitting here first, but what I was doing there was getting centered, paying attention to this tree that I've grown quite fond of. And that's why I've set up the desk right by this window, suspending my belief in a way where I'm allowing that whatever I see next is meant just for me. And what just happened, and I don't know if you saw reactions on my face, but the white crowned sparrow just showed up out here right when I was in my head going over, is this new test, the way that I'm trying this out, going to be successful? And what the sparrow means for me is that whatever happens to be on my mind when he shows up is that I'm at home in that thought. So I don't know, I just got filled with quite a bit of confidence that trying it out this way is going to work. And what I mean by this way is I'm ridiculously comfy. I right now am in my morning routine where I just think. I let my imagination go wild. I've taken very good care of myself thus far this morning, got myself into a position where I'm just pleasantly, just content, comfortable. I'm fed. I've had plenty of water. I've had some social time with my animals. I've done some prayer, and I've set an intention for the day. And the intention was to film something a little bit different, which this is in alignment with, but also being able to speak this way, at least from my own perception and perspective, I feel like I'm confidently clear and articulate right now. A lot of other times in videos that I've filmed, I haven't felt that way because I haven't allowed myself to do it this way. So it's like during this time of my day where I'm doing exploring for the expansion of my own soul is when I get insights, right, about my own life and how things are connected that are seemingly unconnected. And I feel like the level of self-awareness that I have is potentially a gift that I can share with people, but I'm never filming when I'm in that space. And then when I notice I'm getting to that place where I've got some insight that I can share, by the time I go get everything set up, it's long gone and I have to reset, and that has just been taking a lot of effort and getting in my own way. So I'm just going to film from now on what is going on as I complete this routine in the morning. Yeah, so in the material world, my life looks very difficult right now, at least from the old me's judgment, and I'm still growing through that, where I've been focusing on getting content out there for this life coaching business, but also not being able to determine what's of the most use for people. The last couple of days, and the message that I've been wanting to share is what I'm going to try to get into right now. And I am feeling like I'm in a space where I can do that in a way where I don't get too stuck on the ideas because I'm so in my head about how is it being captured, how's it coming off, and I'm just me right now. And I think I also have to get incredibly comfy to talk about two ideas today I think I'll get into that are uncomfortable for me to talk about, because it's not necessarily that my opinions on these things have changed a whole lot over time. It's more of what have I observed and then changed how I internally react to these ideas, and knowing and experiencing that, trying to communicate these ideas with people who aren't the observer in their life. They think that they are their thoughts, their feelings. People who are in that space find it hard to conceptualize a consciousness that observes thoughts, emotions, all of the bodily sensations that we've got going on. or in our mind. And I've always wanted to bridge that gap. Like, that has been the source of all of my childhood pain. We're in this time period, at least I'll speak for myself and millennials right now. Our emotions have been suppressed, denied, dismissed, both by our family systems, our culture. I don't want to overgeneralize. This is from my own observation. I find that millennials are very stuck in their heads. Their mind-body connection isn't super strong. We're learning how to talk about it really well right now because we've gone through enough of the pain of that to not really stand up for the way things are anymore. Here's the thing that I see the general population focus on and get stuck there. And that's, yes, it's really important that we learn how to observe our reactions to things because of our emotions. Just anger, for example. All right, so anger. On an intuitive level, whether it's conscious or not, I believe we all understand it's not inherently good to respond immediately when anger's in your energetic system. The reasons for wanting to do so, take whatever reaction or immediately react, might be valid, but acting on it remains a different matter altogether. Noticing you're angry and restraining from action that's immediate and maybe not in everybody's best interest, like, that's step one. That's only step one. But a lot of times I observe people achieve step one and think that that's the end of my growth. And that is a choice, and that's fine. The problem that I have is when that is your posture on life, you're unaware of it, and you talk as if you're still you're trying to grow beyond that, or you continue to try to grow yourself. So yeah, I'm kind of looking at, like, so energetically, right? If we let anger dictate our behavior or our thoughts first, and then our behavior, that's just not allowing new negative energy into our system. I see a lot of people who haven't addressed what about the negative energy that is already in your system and is not cleared out. And that's where I'm starting. This is where it gets really into uncomfortable territory for me, because I don't know how you avoid religion in our culture when we start to understand this concept, but we kind of need to. I guess my goal is to transcend religion in my perspective of these ideas that I'm talking about, because I think that's exactly what religions around the world ultimately, that the practice of religion, that is the goal, is to energetically clear our systems of negative energy so that we can be present and be in the flow of things. And so how do we clear out what's in our system? And I think this is where Eastern religion, or, like, I guess in my mind specifically, I'm thinking Buddhism, what that does really well for the human soul. I think, like, Christianity, as one example, is a religion that's not clearing out the system, but they are very good at, like, let's serve, let's go out there and be in the world. And I think because they don't understand the function of the energetic body from the Eastern religions, they're missing out on being able to do exactly what they wish to do in super significant ways. Not that they're not doing anything, I just think that their impact could be more and more inclusive. So inclusivity. I can feel myself get locked up around that word because we don't talk about it civilly from either side. And again, that's an overgeneralizing statement, but yeah, it's the side who wants to accept everything that's typically in their spirituality. Yeah. And yeah, so spiritual but not religious. I mean, that's what this time that we're in calls for. How to describe that, how to navigate an environment that exists before us just seems daunting and incredibly difficult. And so I guess I'm here to talk about our body as an energetic system. I really like quantum mechanics and how that's starting to fit and basically be the same thing as spirituality in a lot of ways in my mind. And I'll talk about how I got to some of those conclusions. But there's many people out there who are saying the same thing. Not that it's right. I don't think that. I think it's important to look at whatever present you're in, whatever work you're called to be doing, such as this for me right now. It doesn't need to be my forever calling. It's just the thing that I'm called to be working on right now, and trusting that that has some bigger purpose down the line outside of what I think it should be is what's important. So yeah, energetic system. So I think Buddhism, or let's just open it up more and talk about like chakras as an energetic system. Yeah, so chakras are called energy centers in the body. Our root, the base of our spine, sacral, up a little higher, solar plexus, heart chakra, throat chakra, third eye, and crown. It talks about the energy moving through your body in that system is starting at the root, going up through your body and out. And then quantum mechanics talks about us having a toroidal electromagnetic field anyway. So I kind of really like how that visualization matches science. So in terms of energy being able to flow through the body, it makes sense that you don't want blockages throughout those energy centers that it's passing through, and you want each part to be as open and clear as possible if you want, a full mind-body connection, which I could argue that that's what the chakras are actually pointing to. I think the more energy that we are able to keep passing through as unimpeded as possible means that more energy gets up to our top chakra, and we're in communication, and there's not as much of a language barrier between the transfer of information inside of our own body. And so I think by opening that up, clearing it out, we're more connected to our purpose. We're more connected to the reality of how the world is reflecting our inner state back at us. It just happens because the focus is different of how the energy is getting through our body. So of course that's going to make us think and react differently just by itself, without psychological understanding, without spiritual understanding, without any knowledge. You can see how understanding conceptually what that how energy is getting blocked and not passing through freely throughout our body, how that might affect it. Just intuitively, that makes sense. It takes energy to get through in the way that it's meant to for it to work its best. So yeah, so that's how I describe maybe an Eastern side of the world way we look at how energy, what the energetic system of our body looks like. Now I'm gonna use Christianity just because it's an example that many of us have context around, though I hope people are hearing me from a context that is outside of the religion itself. I'm trying to look at Christianity and how it functions and how it looks at the body as an energetic system. And I'm being more careful because I think the people who are going to be seeing this are more in that camp, just because I am a white privileged male in this society. And so I have a certain way of seeing the world, and I think that, I'm trying to expand as far beyond as I can, but that's what I grew up in. And so I hope to build a bridge, because I've always felt outside of those people and more in line with a bigger, more inclusive view. The energetic system that people who live inside of a Christian reality operate with is heart, mind and body connection, from starting from the heart. I really do think that, and I'll just say it, I believe that Jesus was a person who wanted to relate to people who had more of this energetic body functioning, understanding, heart to the mind, and trying to use that framework to describe and teach us how to learn how to clear out the system instead of only shield ourselves from negative energy. The reason I think it's important for it to be cleared out and be able to protect yourself from new negative energy is that we can actually absorb negative energy and turn it into good energy to send back out. It should be this way. But it takes a cleared out system to be able to actually transform it. And it takes an understanding of both of the ways that these energetic systems operate. So I think it's interesting that religion starts to talk about, no, it's this energy system that's real. No, it's this energy system that's real. And to me, it's like they're both real, and they're both available to us. And why wouldn't we want to work? Why wouldn't we want to know and observe and see how they both work? And furthermore, in relation to each other, how do they work? And yeah, so I think energy, if you go looking for information on energy, what's out there, and I do resonate, divine feminine energy is that posture of being, not doing, while the masculine is doing, not being. All need a healthy balance of both. And energetically speaking, I think this is what I'm talking about. Being mindful. I had to stop because I feel like I'm too far off the tangent of what I'm being called to say. And I think there were a couple statements there that I'm not 100% sure about my own stance inside of some of these belief systems. The story I tell myself about that is I shouldn't be sharing those kinds of thoughts because I don't even have a full grasp of where I am at yet. And there should be a responsibility around what is shared. And to be authentic, I believe, when we're sharing opinions and ideas, it's important to include emotional context around those ideas if you want people to trust you. When I'm trying to figure out where in my body I'm holding on to tension or an emotion, or trying to determine if there is a wound that needs some attention, I guess, I'm looking at or experiencing my body in a way that is more in alignment with the chakras in that energetic system. That intuitively makes sense with how my consciousness is both scanning my body and both using observations from my physical form as well as observations of my thinking to inform an impulse or an urge to take care of myself. When I'm going internal and trying to think about how to be loving outside of myself, the impulse is different because I'm focusing more on a perception of pain or suffering. And there's many ways that can be perceived, different sensors that perceive. Like we have physical pain perceptors, we have emotions, we have belonging, we have, I don't know, the list can go on and on. You guys help me fill in the gaps if you want. So to love in the external is to see the suffering that I've experienced and not wish others to ever experience that, including myself. So what must I pay attention to so that I can hold myself accountable inside of living out my own values? That includes recognizing negative energy coming at me, deflecting it, protecting myself from it, as well as being cleared out. Because if I'm not cleared out, I'm actually only seeing myself and others and not them. And I think that's true because by definition, you're not cleared out until you've accepted the parts of reality that you created your own suffering. Not that it's your fault that you created your suffering, but you had a major role in all of it. And sometimes the role is just feeling it. But until we understand on a micro and macro level what suffering is and what triggers it, we can't actively participate in creating less of it. Or, well, maybe that's never true, and maybe all we can do is staunch the bleeding when it happens, right? And I think that sounds more true. Why is that true? Great question. I think people who, it's not a direct answer to the question, but I think people who love deeply understand that to love is to experience suffering. We're all different. And even if it's a perfect match in all of our human understanding of what that could possibly mean, and even from a godly understanding of what perfect could mean, even if that is the case in a relationship or love, right? Like whenever there's more than one person, priorities are going to be different. By the nature of wanting different things, it is inevitable that conflict arises. And I do not mean conflict as a term of aggression or malice. I just mean it as two different directions. As many different directions as there are people may be correct for different reasons that don't make sense to every person involved. And therefore, to love deeply means to open yourself up to much suffering. So your role can just be loving deeply and letting it be. And that is still a role in suffering. However, when we're not cleared out, a past negative energy that we didn't protect ourselves from, and it got trapped somewhere in the body, and now we need to learn how to go find that in the body and process it. And again, sometimes that can be just to feel it, or I believe we actually have the opportunity to do more with it. Functionally, I don't know how to describe that in words yet, and I'll be chasing that for a lifetime, I'm sure, just for my own understanding. What I think is true is that shadow work, it is what I'm pointing at. And I'm not the person who's going to be able to describe best what that means, but it is acknowledging that suffering from your past did cause you to act in ways that were outside of your integrity in the context of living out your values if that suffering was not processed. And that suffering happens, the reason you act outside of your integrity is so that you can observe that happening, so it can point to the wound, so that you can process it. And I believe that the energy that happens when you take that negative energy, see your role in it, and how your role potentially, not that it did, could have attracted more negative energy to it, and that you don't want to be inside of that system. You don't want to be a part of that play in the playbook, as it be energetically. And the desire to want to transcend that puts positive energy into your system. I think it transmutes that negative energy and is with you when you find your heart in a posture of gratitude and your urge becomes a desire to love externally. You carry all of that transmuted shadow energy with you if you know how to tap into it. It doesn't go away. It builds on itself. And for me to get to a place where I intuitively understand that and pay attention to that in my own body took the study of many, many different religions and seeing how they all have something of value that is a piece to our human experience. And I do get frustrated when people get stuck in a religion. Religion is like a college, it's a school. You go to learn something. That's not necessarily about, I mean, some of it is about the knowledge that you gain, but one could argue, that the purpose of a university is to actually teach you a process of how to continue to gain knowledge and apply it to your life in a functionally sound way. I believe a church is the same thing. It's a slice of the human experience, and we're meant to learn something to apply to ourselves so that we can transcend the thing that's there, right? I don't know if that makes sense. Maybe I'll get some hate for saying that. Whatever. Then what I worry about in our society is leadership and how we define and talk about what that means and who we look up to as leaders. And I'm going to talk about myself for a second, because there's many times in my past where I have been given the title of leader, and I accepted it gladly. And I think I could even argue for a lot of the right reasons. With one giant exception, is that from childhood neglect, a lens of my life that was true was that I needed to seek external validation all the time. It's just like the only thing I needed. And so being a leader helps with that. But I also took it very seriously and wanted to morally do good with leadership positions, and that turned me off from it, because living in that place led to a lot of suffering in different ways that I'm not going to get into here. But I resist that title now because I just don't want the responsibility of leading and worrying about people outside of myself anymore. The way I look at leadership takes on a new form. I'm talking for me right now, but leadership to me looks like being able to be tuned in with something bigger than myself. The desire to want to live in my values and guide others along that path if they want it, but not telling anybody how to do anything, only by sharing what it is that I've done for myself and how that relates to my values and my goals. Now, if I go outside of just the way I view it and back up and just say, what is good leadership? I think that being somebody who is able to say, I believe in this, and have that resonate, all the health levels, so emotional, psychological, spiritual, physical, social. If you can be authentic and share with the public, I believe in this, that's a social agreement of accountability and being willing to be held accountable to what you believe in seems like good leadership. And furthermore, the stronger that spiritual leg is, the more you can trust that that leader is there for more than themselves. But the way we use the term leader and the way we talk about it in America, we look at it from a results orientation instead of a process orientation. A balance is required, but it's clear we prioritize results with no accountability. It's all about the story we tell ourselves about ourselves, folks. And I think energy work, whatever that means, whatever that looks like for you, is a really good starting point to clarify your own connection to whatever you want or feel connected to, and why. So a lot of people say, this statement, how did life happen for you, not to you? It's super difficult to add context to that, and I hope that this whole thing was a different type of context that you haven't come across.